All right, welcome into the first episode of Crutch's Corner. I'm Steven Strom alongside the head coach of the Nova Southeastern men's basketball team, Jim Crutchfield. We are 20 days away until the season opener versus Alabama Huntsville on November 5th. Coach, how we doing? How's everything? You pumped? I see you. You getting ready?
Well, I'm glad you reminded me basketball season is coming up because, I'm from West Virginia and I could look outside. I would see the leaves changing. It was getting a little brisk in the air, maybe even spitting some snow. And it's basketball season. But now I have no idea when basketball season starts. So thank you for that reminder. I would have had no idea because I'm still wearing my sunglasses down here.
100%, and we'll get into the basketball portion of it, but even like the holidays here, and we're not complaining, this is we love this state, but even people are hanging up their Christmas decorations in December at 75 degrees. It doesn't feel like, what I'm saying, the seasonal tradition.
It's year 6 for me here. It still hasn't quite kicked in yet. Whether basketball, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, it doesn't match up with the weather and the leaf and everything. But I'm with you. I'm not going to complain about the weather.
No, well, we're not going to complain about the weather. We're not going to complain about last season either. 30 wins, 1 loss. I know that one loss, obviously, it sticks with you. Last year, Nova Southeastern got to the NCAA tournament. They lose to Black Hills State 77-66. Are you over that game? How was that process like after that game and over the summer?
Yeah, it sticks with you forever. We didn't have a good game on a really important day. I'm sure Black Hills had a lot to do with that. But I think you might have asked me one time, how many times have I watched the tape of that game? I think I move on pretty quickly. I'll watch the tape of it. I've watched a little bit already. But in this business, you got to move on. You move on. Everybody's season ends in a loss except for one team out of 315 teams. Ours came against Black Hills in the Elite Eight. But I'm also the kind of guy, I forget about some of those great wins that you were part of, and regional championships and conference championships, and regular season championship last year. And those I forget quicker than I do the Black Hills game. The loss seems to stick with me a little bit longer, but it is a profession where there's always a game out ahead of it. You got to go through the summer, but you start to get kind of excited about the next season. And that's right now.
The message in the offseason, because you have the majority of guys coming back, and then we'll talk about some of the transfers, some of the freshmen that are coming in. As a coach, what is your message to these guys that, hey, 31 last year, that is a really high achievement that you guys were able to accomplish. How do you almost keep them forget about last year? This is a new year. That pressure, every single game to win, obviously needs to be there, but the expectation to win another 30 games is a pretty high thing to do.
I think sometimes they take winning for granted, and they forget about how lucky we were to win a lot of those games. A couple of games we basically were done and pulled a miracle shot, or something happened down the stretch that got us a win. And I think our guys are under the assumption sometimes that we're going to win now. And that's not the case. We've got a pretty good target on our back, and every game is going to be difficult to win. So I feel like I'm fighting that. That's the result more of last season's success, is saying it's over. Right now we're just a team that's being hunted, and we haven't beaten anybody yet. I'm in practice. We're not looking too good some days. And, I got to get that reality of saying just because you won games last year, it has nothing with what's going to happen this year.
Nova Southeastern loses 3 players this year. They lost Sekou Silla to Towson. Congratulations to him, Division I now. And Nick Smith, who graduated but is still going to be on the staff of the Sharks. And then Eddie Puises. I don't know. What is Eddie doing, by the way? I know he graduated. Do we know what Eddie's doing?
Business world, medical sales and dental sales. And I'm sure he's going through some type of, do they call it PTSD after basketball? I don't know. I know he's going, he and Nick are still close. They're sharing the same townhouse. And Nick says, after 5 years of basketball, who wants to go into the real world? I mean, I actually in that world, so I don't really know what it's like. But Eddie has entered into the real world. I know he's doing very well. Incredibly smart guy, great personality. Whatever he does, he'll do well. But all of a sudden, he's not coming to basketball practice and hanging out with us anymore. So I think he's having a little bit of withdrawal from that.
So Nick Smith moves to the bench. How is that been? How's that transition been for him? What is he going to bring to this team as far as invaluable experience?
Yeah, he's already, I'm getting dividends from Nick already, even throughout the summer. And first of all, his transition probably wasn't as big as most guys. He was already kind of a coach on the floor, as you saw last year. And he was the alpha dog, without a doubt, personality in the locker room and outside the locker room. So he just kind of extended that role. And, every program needs a guy like Nick because he relays information to me, I think, about the team sometimes that I'm not privy to. And he's a smart enough young man. He knows what to filter. He knows what to tell me and what not to tell me. He's really valuable in a lot of respects, as a liaison between myself and the players' personalities, along with on the court. If I need an extra player, boom, I tell him, you'll put the kicks on, you're playing today. And he's ready to do whatever I tell him to do. Plus, socially, I need someone to play tennis with every now and then. Whatever it might be, he's under my thumb. I say, come on, Nick, with me. You can't say no.
That's a great story. I love that. The image of you guys playing tennis back and forth. That's a great one. Jordan Fee was also promoted to associate head coach. What has he been like on the bench and just seeing his growth?
Yeah, and I think he's probably the best assistant, associate, whatever you want to call him, head coach in the country. I don't know of a better guy to be sitting beside me. His role hasn't, I know that's just a title. He might have been an associate head coach before. He might still be an assistant coach. I'm not sure what to call him, but I know how valuable he is. And yeah, he's been down here with me now all 6 years. He was here a year or two before me. So he's a pretty mature assistant coach. He's a great networker. And in a basketball program now, there's so many things outside of coaching basketball that have to be taken care of. And I have the luxury of saying, Jordan, take care of it. Whether it's the paperwork with the NCAA or player housing or meetings or whatever, he takes care of all the ins and outs of the program and leaves me to just coach the team, which is that's a real luxury for me. But he is incredibly valuable. Of course, I told him, I know you got a new title, but you're still taking the same orders you took before. He understands that. He's a guy right now that's going to end up being a great head coach. I don't think there's any doubt. He's even had some opportunities in that direction. So he's very valuable to not just me, but Nova Southeastern University.
Coach, I saw something on Twitter yesterday, which I know sometimes scares coaches when I want to bring something up from Twitter, but I saw a quote from Tom Izzo, and he said, quote, a player coach team is always better than a coach team, close quote. Do you agree with that? And how has your style changed from season one to now?
I tell people the story, things that changed me as a coach. And one of them was I was watching TV back in Cameron, West Virginia, when I was a head basketball coach at a high school. I was 24, 25 years old. And Dale Brown was coaching LSU. And they panned the camera on him at the last second in the huddle. And he looked at his team. It meant the game. He goes, do you guys think we can run this play? And my first thought was, he didn't know what he's doing. And then I started thinking, he's a very successful coach at LSU. I'm sitting on a Naugahyde couch here in Cameron, West. Maybe he knows something that I don't know. And I started thinking, if you can marry players to what you're doing, if they feel like they have a say in things, then, they take better ownership in it and just more effective. And I've tried to use that ever since about, the players, our style of play. It's not easy for guys to do it. They have to say, we're committed, we're going to do it. And in that, they become part of the coaching process too. And I do, especially as players mature year after year, I let them make some decisions about even I asked him, do you think we can put the pressure on these guys? Do you think we can run this play? And I think it's an effective way of coaching. And it goes back to what Izzo said. If the players are coaching and they're involved, I think it is better. And I've talked to them every single day already this year about, I need you guys to be smarter than any team in the country. When we go to the foul line, I need you to look at the clock and the time and the score and the number of fouls and the time and score situation, analyzing it. So I'm not over there yelling, during the 1-on-1, we can't, what we can and can't do. You see it all, and you become smart players, and you make me a better coach then.
Do you think we're seeing kind of the first guy I think of is like Bob Knight, guys that just get in guys' face and scream? Do you think that we're kind of moving away from that as we move forward? And why do you think that, if so?
I there's certain things I think that you could get away with before, because the world of political correctness was different then. But I think there's still coaches that's how they're most effective. And even when I was teaching coaching classes back at West Liberty University, my first thing I always tell them was, don't try to copy somebody. You have to kind of figure out what your personality is, and if you try to be somebody else, it'll show. And for me, I think Bobby Knight was a great coach. I think Bobby Huggins is a great coach. But if I tried to be Bobby Huggins' personality or Bobby Knight, I would just look foolish. You need to be who you are. Players, they can see that. Have your own personality, and I think those kind of personalities are dwindling a little bit. The in your face motivates you that way, and I think the world is coming more toward coaches who can control things, but yet are player coaches, and you're associated with the best. Coach Spolstra is the very best. I think that taking both of those worlds of saying, I am in control here, I'm dictating everything, but yet I maintain a good relationship with players. I know how to talk to players. I know how to show respect toward players and get respect from them. I think he's the perfect example of the new age coach.
Yep.
How to be effective. And obviously the GMs of the NBA feel the exact same way.
Yeah, it's finding that mix. And I think we're starting to see more coaches try to be like that, right? You've got to have that discipline. You've got to have that control, but control is kind of it gets a negative connotation. But I think coaches obviously need to have control, but you also want to be connected. You need to understand your players and different things like that. And to piggyback on what you said about Bob Huggins, you can't be Bob Huggins because he wears those sweaters and you've got the Blazers. You've got you pulled out some fits that were phenomenal last year. Can we expect anything new this year, or did we go shopping? Give us a feel for the Crutch attire this season.
Well, I hadn't planned on it, but the kind of pressure you're putting on me right now, the Sawgrass Mills, and see what they have over there.
Okay.
Couple of the ability to wear those Kohan shoes now instead of hard shoes has made my job more comfortable. And the Carolina, I just can't believe the amount of attention I've gotten from a pair of white or a pair of Carolina Blues Kohan shoes. But hey, I'm like anybody else. I savor a little bit of personal attention, so maybe I need to find something else. Do you have any suggestions for me?
I listen. The Carolina stuff I love. I thought that was really sharp. I don't know. I think you can maybe go pink a little bit. I think maybe you can mix in the pink, or you can go to your player Mike Moore, who's in fashion. So maybe you can get some advice with him.
I'll think about pink. I'm pretty secure. I think I can pull that off. I'll give it a try, maybe. Come
on. All right. Back to basketball. You got 10 players returning back for this season. Let's get into some of your transfers and freshmen. So we've got Ryan Davis from Palm City. We've got Maxwell Gordon from Weston. And then you've got two transfers, Will Yakum from West Liberty and Thomas Murphy from Vermont. Give us really quick spark notes on these four guys.
Yeah, the two freshmen are freshmen, and they're going through what all freshmen go to, and they're learning a completely new system. So, the jury's still out on them and will be for a while, I think. The two transfers are on the opposite end of the spectrum. They're very mature. Will Yakum, I recruited Will Yakum to play at West Liberty. I signed him 6 years ago, and they're both sixth-year college players. So they're both 24 years old and very mature. Will Yoakum, his transition, because West Liberty is still playing the same style. Everything is pretty much the same there as when I was there. So he's already coming in ready to go. And he's a talent. There's no doubt about that. And Thomas Murphy is a quick learner and a very savvy basketball player from a great basketball family. And so he's also a quick learner. So, I don't think the learning curve will be as big for either one of those guys, Will Yoakum or Thomas Murphy, as the average guy coming into our program.
And then personnel wise, obviously there wasn't a ton of negative from last season. What is some of the things that you're going to be able to do this year, either offensively or defensively, that you're pretty excited about?
I think that we might be a little across the board, a little faster than last year. Sekou Silla was the National Player of the Year, but he was more of an NBA style, player, and he made great adaptations to fit into our system here. And that's one thing I really appreciated about Sekou. More than his ability was his effort in trying to do what I wanted him to do. And he was a pleasure to coach. But I think he wasn't the best defensively in applying pressure. Mm-hmm. He was a great scorer. We looked at him. He was posting up a lot. Not as much five-man movement maybe as I've had in the past because we adapted to him a little bit. So I think that, I think we'll be better five-man offense. I think that we have some serious issues team-wise with the loss of Nick Smith, and Eddie Puisis with his ability to stretch defenses out. But Nick was a great decision maker and a really good passer. And someone needs to fill that void, whether it be one person or collectively as a team. But, right now it's so early, it's almost hard to tell if we're any good or not. I think we've got a good basketball team, but, we're just getting started in the full-time practice. Whatever our needs are going to be are probably going to be exploited more in a couple of scrimmage games against other people and in early season games.
Two more left here. Coach Crutchfield with us. Coach is going into his fifth season, sixth year. Is that correct, Coach?
Sixth year here. Obviously, we sat one out with COVID, so it'll be actually fifth year on the court, sixth year at Nova Southeastern.
Okay, so we got two more left with you. Some of the returners, I don't know how much contact you have with them over the summer, but just seeing them in practice, anyone stick out, I think, physically that you've seen so far?
We don't have the Division I. Let's all get together here for a month of training in the summer.
Right.
But I recruit guys that are basketball players, that are serious basketball players, and they're playing in pro-am leagues, they're working out. So we maintain contact with them. That's myself, Jordan Fee, Mike Chalice, Nick Smith. Between the four of us, there's a constant contact from the time we left to the time we get back here with our players. I think this team is different than any other team I've ever had because I didn't go into the weight room, and we have a great weight room and a coach in the weight room that specifically develops our players for basketball. But this is the first year I didn't say these are the guys that need to really lift and get bigger and stronger. I don't think we have anybody that's too big, but I don't feel like we have that guy who hasn't caught up to their body yet. We had some guys like a Shane Hunter or Jonathan Pierre. I thought, they had to put on some weight in the past, put on some muscle. I think they're where they need to be. And this year was more of a let's maintain, let's get quicker, let's get faster as opposed to let's get bigger and stronger. So no one has come back huge, but the guys, you might notice Kobe Rogers, he's put on 5 or 6 pounds either by lifting or maturity. But when I looked at him, I said, we don't need to get a lot bigger. We can always get a little quicker and stronger. But I think it's more of a maintenance thing right now for us.
Last one for you. I know we kind of discussed this as far as just the new age of basketball with analytics. And we talked a little bit about maybe what can look differently offensively. You guys finished seventh out of 12 in threes in the SSC last year. Is that a point of emphasis going into the year as far as maybe getting up more threes? Because that was something that one of the numbers that wasn't up there as far as conference leading.
It hasn't been talked about, and it's not really a concern. We want guys that can shoot the ball from the 3-point line. But it would be noticeable if you looked at my 18 years as a head coach about the number of threes that we've shot. And we've led the country a couple years in threes made. But I think, first of all, we're in a conference where teams are putting up a lot of threes. I think we're above probably the median. When we have the 315 teams in the country, we're in the upper half of that, but not in our league. My priority, number one, is outscoring the other team. And from the time that I started coaching basketball, people had labeled some of the teams I've coached as they're a three-point shooting team, or a certain way where this is a transition team. That's not true. We are a score any way humanly possible team, and whatever suits our personnel the best. If it's posting up, if it's putting the ball on the floor, dribble drive, if it's off ball screening, if it's on ball screening, if it's getting to the foul line, if it's perimeter shooting, it's all in our package. And I think that is more of a personnel thing than our style of play. And it has to do some with Sekou Silla last year, who, by the way, can shoot the ball from the 3-point line pretty effectively. I think he was 1 for 1 or 2 for 2 last year and shot in practice. And I never once told him, don't shoot threes. But he was so strong at getting to the rim, his decision was, why would I shoot threes to the rim? And so, kind of letting back to, do players help coach the team? That's kind of part of it. He's coaching himself. I don't know that we'll be shooting any more three. Eddie Puisis walked away and was our top 3-point shooter last year, and he's gone. But we've got some guys shooting the ball pretty well. The arc has moved back, last year a little bit deeper, which I think affects it a little bit. But it's honestly, I don't know if we'll be 7th or 2nd in 3-point shooting right now. I think it's going to be depending on how the flow of the game goes and how people choose to defend us sometimes. I know this, if people want to defend us hard on the perimeter, we need to be able to attack the rim. And if people want to attack on us, we got to make threes. We got to score.
100%. And we are 20 days away until the season opener versus Alabama, Huntsville. Coach, thank you for joining me. This has been Crutch's Corner, episode 1. We're going to try to get these out consistently as we move forward. It's going to be on SoundCloud and YouTube, and hopefully we can continue to grow up. But Coach, thank you very much for giving me the time, and we will talk soon.
Thank you, Stephen.